Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have once again Guion Hughes. How you doing, Guion?
I'm great. Thanks for having me again.
Good to have you back on. And we're going to go ahead and study Thelema and the Book of the Law today. And right here I have my copy of the Book of the Law. And Guion has some books that he's got his book right there. And yeah, and let's go ahead and start out with how did you get into Thelema?
Well, I did a video about this. It was kind of an interesting thing. I consider it kind of a supernatural thing, possibly. Is this man, and this is a great book too. This is Grady McMurtry, who kind of started the modern California OTO, or what they call a Caliphate OTO, which is probably the most legit OTO. And OTO stands for Ordo Templis Orientis, the temple of the Orient. Or Orient also has a connotation of you're orienting yourself, like as far as not necessarily the Orient, like the Asian stuff, but you're orienting yourself to like go for, to ascend into God, or go higher, find your HD or whatever you're doing. So I think so that's a group that is Thelemic now. Aleister Crowley encountered them, and he basically kind of like charmed them into like making them, taking over the OTO. It's based on some old Templar things like that. So anyway, the Grady McMurtry, he started this. He was from Oklahoma. My family's from Oklahoma, so I had some interaction with them. My family, this is in the 70s. I was a child. I was like 7. And my family didn't want me around him because he looked like he had long beard and long hair. He was like a hippie. And at that time in California, it was right after the Manson. I was born in '69 when the Manson murders happened. So everybody thought hippies were killing everybody in California.
Yeah.
But, so they really had a negative thing. And if you want to the video, it goes into, there was a little bit of an altercation where he said there was some stuff we might have had. And some of the books, some books he might have left there, but he was being kind of like belligerent about it. But that was back. That's how I remembered as a child. Right. When I found out, that he was a hippie, and they said he's a hippie, he's into this weird devil stuff or something like that. So I researched it, and I found that he was actually into Thelema. That was what he's into.
Yeah.
And I probably at the time he was hippie-ish. He did have the long hair. He kind of looked like Wavy Gravy or something. He had a long beard. But that's how I got what kind of piqued my interest. And also Aleister Crowley. I encountered Aleister Crowley in Books of the Weird and things like that. He was in a lot of like, I don't know, things. I used to read those as kids, things, Strange People and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to know like what was this person doing? So that's how I got into it. That's how I got interested. And then I've just been reading up on it ever since I was a teenager, pretty much.
Okay. Now, the numerology of Thelema adds up to the number 93. Now, in your opinion, what is the significance of the number 93, if any deeper significance?
Yeah, the word Thelema means will in Koine Greek, which is the Greek, not the modern day Greek that they speak in Greece now, but the Greek that the New Testament was written in. So I think it's a nod to that, to Christianity. Thelema also, the gematria, the messing with the numbers and stuff. Aleister Crowley got Thelema and love in Greek to reach 93. And so when someone says 93, I mean, it's like kind of a secret way of knowing that you're into Thelema, or maybe in the OTO or the AA, which the AA is the silver star. I mean, AA, it's not like the Alcoholics Anonymous. It's they have a group AA, which is more of a one-on-one. Instead of the OTO is more of a group, a fraternity type thing, but they have women too, fraternity thing. The AA is a secret thing, and it's like, say it's like just me and you, like somebody's the teacher, it's almost like the Sith Lord thing or something, right? So they're learning, they're reading books, they're just they just have a partner. They don't. Yeah. It's all, some people say they're in it, some they don't have to though. So there's all these different groups that they go into that. So people say 93. And then they'll know you're into Thelema, you're into something, and it basically means will and love, because that's the whole thing of a Thelema, meaning will, or to do, or to wish. That's the whole thing of Crow. Do what thy will shall be the whole law. Love is the law. Love it. It's just thing of saying his motto, his powerful motto of, love is the law, love under will, and stuff.
Okay. Now, in 1904, Crowley channeled "Do what thou wilt be the whole of the law, love is the law, love under will." Now he says, through your holy guardian angel, you find your true will. Now the magic of the Sefer of Da'at needs to be crossed to achieve the supernal triad. Now Da'at is defined as the abyss. Now, what would you be able to say about crossing the abyss and to explain that?
For me, I think there's a certain point. The abyss is like where duality ends, and I think that's why people go through so much hard times for it. It's hard to let go of duality, because everything is dualistic in our life. I mean, it's everything, even our bodies. We have limits. There's space around our bodies and our bodies. There's always two things. So to get our heads around, like, there's no duality. There's really nothing that's going to save us. Stuff like that. It gets really depressing. I think everybody has to go through that. They call it the long night of the soul, and more like Orthodox Christianity sometimes, or whatever. Well, to go through it, I think everybody obviously has to go through their own individual thing, whatever their demons are. Like, say, giving up, whatever they're into. Or, I mean, there's a lot of things. For me, my personal journey through the abyss, I consider, it was when I was a child, and we talked about this before, when my grandfather died, and his spirit went with me, and things like that. And some of the things that I mentioned with Grady McMurtry, with the in the 70s, it was really dangerous. And as a child in the 70s in Los Angeles, with the murders, on top of the Manson that just happened, there was a Hillside Strangler, and then later on there was we talked about Richard Ramirez and all these different things. So there was, I consider that kind of an abyss time for me, just raising up. And people could consider that, that if you're ascending down, that, that's your childhood or your birth trauma or whatever is an abyss, like that. I think we maybe go through several different trees of life. People have to assign whatever values they want. That's how I look at it, but everybody has to go their own journey. I think that's when people probably would maybe want to get counseling or maybe a mentor or something to help them through.
There's a lot of truth in what he says when he says you must cross the abyss in order to ascend. I mean, I think that can be interpreted many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think that well, you have to face your fears. I think in a sense that's what he's saying. You have to face your fears and go through the thing that you fear the most. And then you'll be better for it, or you'll reach more knowledge for it. I mean, a lot of this is philosophy, and people don't really use that so much in magic today. I want to emphasize philosophy more, because if you don't have the philosophy to figure it out, then maybe you'll have self-doubt. So the philosophy around it, and and the thing too is people can't really teach you philosophy so much. It's like you got to make it up on your own, because like anything I tell somebody, even if they say like, oh yeah, you're older, you're more experienced, I agree, in the back of their mind they're going to say, that's not my idea, maybe this guy's wrong. They're going to resist.
Well, I think that crossing the abyss allows one to develop their own philosophy, to where they can understand other things on multiple levels. Now, tarot is commonly used among Thelemites. Now, do you personally use the tarot a lot in your practice?
Yeah, I use tarot.
Do you use the Thoth deck?
The Thoth tarot is the main one that they want to use in Thelema. I have copies of that. I've studied that. I like to do more like freestyle with tarot, because I like to know like chaos magic. I mean, I feel myself as a chaos magician first, and then Thelema is just something that I get into. At one time I was more into it and considered it maybe my religion, but I'm kind of not into. I'm not there right now. so I like the way that I've read an author, Taylor Elwood. The way he describes tarot is to just do the cards. Don't look up what the cards mean. And then if you get a reading that you don't like, to use a separate deck to try to like see if there's a solution to that. So you're not just like stuck like, oh, you got this tower.
Well,
card.
I mean, I think at some point, you just like the pictures in the tarot, depending on whatever deck you end up using, the pictures and everything just stands out to you, and you start to see like you might see a vision, or you might see your past in the way the cards are drawn and stuff like that.
Mhm.
One thing I like about the Golden Dawn and Crowley's deck in general is that I like the way that everything is like he'll take the Kabbalah into consideration, and every pathway and every sphere has a card assigned to it, and I like how they get detailed like that into it. That's one thing that I like.
For sure. I mean, there's a whole book on the Toss Tarot by mentor of mine. That like his book, and this is really good for Thelema too. This is the Magic of Aleister Crowley by Lon Milo Duquette, a handbook of Thelema, and it goes into all the different ones. You know, all the ones you're talking about. The LBSP goes into Resh, which Resh is the adoration of the sun, which that for me is very important. That's one of the reasons that draws me to Thelema when I found out that Aleister Crowley, because he was kind of scientific, his philosophy or his ideas, which I agree with this, is that the sun, our star, is the most powerful thing that we know that's real, kind of, right? So, 5 times a day in Resh, he would recommend that you try to align your energy with the sun, and all these different times. It's kind of a play on the praying 5 times a day with Muslims. But
you also have something to do with the daily adorations as well, recognizing the sun.
Yeah. Well, I think there's that part, and then eventually I believe that the idea is that you merge your energy with this sun, and you start understanding where it's coming from. Like for me, because I've been studying for years, I believe the sun, created us so it could see itself, kind of. I think it has this radiation language, and it creates life on this planet and maybe other planets, and that's how.
Maybe communicates through gamma rays, that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, when something's born, it doesn't have eyes, but we have eyes, and we can see it. There's some kind of sensation there. It's kind of like a creation, self-creation thing with it.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think Crowley had some really good thoughts. The reason I think he gets a lot of heat, and this probably ties into the dark thing. I wanted to mention this is people say, well, why not just do something like, why not just follow somebody who always tries to do the right thing, or always do the good thing, or never try to do something that sounds shady or whatever.
Right.
But limiting, that's kind of like always going left, if you look at it that way, right? If you're always going left, you're always going right, you're going around in circles, right? I mean, sometimes as dark magicians, even, or the white men, whatever you want to label yourself or align yourself with, sometimes it's appropriate. It's better for you to go right or left, and just look at it that way instead of good or bad, So Crowley, he had a hard time. I mean, people say, oh, he can call himself the devil. It's really his mother who gave him that nickname. His mother called him the Beast, and he just was like, he owned it. He and you see that with a lot of, when people are minorities and they get bad words. It's something like that. I think, or even women will embrace bad words that are derogatory. I think he did that. People don't realize that that's where he's coming from. I mean, I have a lot. I've studied a lot of this, and I think after a while you just kind of meld with where he's coming from and where the whole thing's coming from, and not get hung up on the negative things of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Let's go ahead and jump into the Book of the Law now. Now a little bit of background of the Book of the Law. He was in Cairo at the time. With his girlfriend. I think he was earlier in the day, he was trying to summon some sylphs, some elementals, and that wasn't going good. And then I guess from noon to 1 p.m. for 3 days, he channeled the Book of the Law. Now, what's your opinion on this book in general?
I think it's a fascinating book. I mean, I think it's very interesting. I don't like parts of it. I mean, it's a really an interesting thing to study. The chapter 3 has a lot of like insulting other religions and stuff. I don't know if that's necessarily good. That's another thing why they say Crowley's dark. He's saying he's going to blind Muhammad, and he's going to,
right.
He's going to.
He does some blasphemy in there, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to do things like that. He's going to mess up people, all the religions, and his religion's the best, and all this stuff. So like. He definitely had some ego with that. My understanding of when how that went is he had just got married to Rose Kelly, and they did their honeymoon in the pyramids. And back then, you know, you could actually maybe pay under the table. I don't know how, and they actually stayed in the king's chamber in the pyramid, and they stayed there. And Crowley, trying to impress her, is what he even admitted he was doing. He actually took out a paper. You know, he didn't even have a book. It wasn't published even. It was a paper he had gotten probably from the Golden Dawn that had the Bornless ritual, you know, in English. And he read the Bornless ritual, and that allegedly possessed his newlywed wife, and she got possessed, and she was his seer, and he was the magician writing everything down. So she, you know, and then also there's a, you know, and this is the stele revealing here on the book. That's allegedly, you know, what he says is that when she, you know, his wife was going on and on about different Egyptian gods and everything. So they went to the Egyptian museum, and allegedly this was like the thing where she's like, oh, this is the stele, you know, this is like everything. This is where all the gods are and everything. And the whole thing was, Crowley said that there was a, you know, a lot number thing on it that said 666. So he's like, oh, fine, you know. So there's all these like things that he put into the story behind this, and you know, maybe legendary, you know, legendizing or whatever. But right. I mean, it is what it is. I think it is an interesting book like this. I mean, a lot of it I think is based on revelations and the Bible. I mean, I think that Crowley really did like the Bible. He was just trying to adapt it for somebody like him who was like, doesn't want the sexual hangs-ups. You know, he was bisexual. He didn't want, you know, he wanted like modernize Christianity, make it what it used to be before all the moralizing and the controlling people's sexuality, which you know, that what he believes that Christianity originally was probably a solar, you know, the sun we mentioned, like with the rest, a solar and phallic cult. That's why this actual symbol, this Celtic cross, is actually, you know, there's the you know, the cross, and there's the thing. It's kind of like an ankh, but that represents the sun on a stick, you know, kind of like that, you know. So yeah, so there's, you know, he's trying to bring it back to the old Greek, more like Gnostic Christian, you know. Which, you know, you see that with him using a lot of Greek, with even calling it Thelema in the first place. Is like right. You know, like he's telling people, yeah, that's it's a fascinating book. I've studied it for a while, but if there's any passages that stick out to you. Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to read from a couple here. In chapter 1, Crowley writes, "I give unimaginable joys on earth, certainty, not faith." That's something that stuck out to me. And then also in chapter 2, he says, "Lust, enjoy all things of sense and rapture. Fear not that any god shall deny thee for this." So just what we were talking about earlier. Now, he had channeled Aiwass, and in turn, Aiwass got a hold of Nuit, Hadith, and Ra Horquit, which Nuit was the Egyptian sky goddess, or should I say is the Egyptian sky goddess. Hadith, that she's the divine feminine, Hadith, the divine masculine, and then Ra Horquit, the magical child. And through Aiwass, he was able to get a hold of these three, and then he was able to channel and get what we have as the Book of the Law. Now, what would do you have anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think that's the idea. You could see that. I mean, I don't know if you see it this way, but it's a form of Christianity. I mean, that's why when I studied with Milo Duquette over here, he would tell his teacher would, you know, he wanted to get into Goetia, he wanted to get into Nokian, he wanted to get into all these other systems, right? And they consider that low magic, you know, they sorcery, you know, low magic, because high magic is like, it's kind of like Christianity. You like just pray to either one god or in his case a series of gods. He's got his own Trinity and he's got his own guardian angel. It's basically a Christian thing, you know, and anything. So I look at it like a cross, you know, like you could do like a invocation to evocation is just down this way, and then the other way is just action and inaction. You know, that's the way I try to set up my system. So the sorcery line is there. You could use it if you want, but you know, Thelema generally, especially like with the AA, maybe. Well, the OTO, they have events where they do different things with the Goetia and stuff like that. And I learned Goetia and Enochian from Lon, so they still do, still do it. But the whole idea is that this is still kind of like Christianity, is that you're supposed to stay on the straight and narrow, only up to the God. As far as those gods, like Nui was kind of like Crowley made her up a little bit. I mean, they have a goddess like that, the goddess of the night sky, and in English it's translated as N-U-T, like nut, right? Which were like nut. People pronounce it nut, but I believe it's pronounced something like Nui. But
there's a difference between
And in French, nuit means night. Like you say, bonne nuit is like good night. So nuit means night in French. And so he just took the French word night. And so it's more clear than saying, because they're like, what, you got a nut for a god, So then the other ones you can see, I mean, you can see it's basically, it's his own version of the Christian Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or Father, Mother, Son. There's different. He just created his own Trinity with these Egyptian gods because he was over there, I guess. But yeah, then the whole thing is in Thelema a lot. They tell you, just get your holy guardian angel and do what the holy guardian angel says, and go to the gods and let the gods come into your life. So it's not like magical, really. I don't consider that magical, because magical I consider the magician doing things to make things happen in his world,
Right.
But you're doing things, but you're just relying on this to, your
it's guardian, a natural process.
Yeah, your holy guardian angel does everything. So, and then there's a whole process to get your holy guardian angel that are you familiar with Boleskine House, what Crowley did there?
Yeah.
So he tried to do the Abramelin ritual, which we saw that in Dark Song. And, if you've ever watched that movie, Dark Song, he did that, but he didn't finish it. So, but, people just like let it go, because he went, he left the Golden Dawn to go do that. And then the Golden Dawn sent him a message saying, hey, all these people are taking over the Golden Dawn you don't like. So he just left the Abramelin and went over, which is a huge, if you read the book, it's whole, they say if you even leave the grounds, you could die or whatever, And he's just talking a little bit out. I don't know if it's true.
Okay, well, that's been a very good discussion on Thelema and the Book of the Law. Anyone watching, I'll have all of Guion's links below. Check out his pages. Thank you once again, Guion, for coming on. It's been a good chat, and we'll have him on sometime again soon and get into another subject of study. Everybody watching, go ahead and like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.
Thanks. See you later.